welcome. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started then, I guess. I'll let people come in as they are. Hi, this is John Lee with the St. Louis Real Estate Investors Association. This is part of our professional premiere series, and we got a very special valued member tonight, very special guest, Sandra Holtmeyer from First Freedom Properties LLC. And just a couple things before we get started here. We do have a couple more sessions coming up here in the next few weeks. We do have on Thursday, July the 9th, we have Rob Fishbein from JM Real Estate Capital, and he's going to fill us in on the current state of investment with real estates today. We've got a lot of things going on right now and a lot of changes, and he's going to give us the update on that. On the 14th, which is Tuesday, we are going to have Kent Kinzer from Equity Trust. He's going to give us a sneak preview of our, we got a virtual wealth building workshop, a 4-hour workshop, which we're going to have on the 21st. He's going to give us a sneak preview on that. We're not sure if we can record that yet. We're still waiting to see about that. So do make sure you can tune in live if at all possible. And so mark your calendars for Tuesday, and that's 7/21, July 21st. So tonight, we are very, very happy and very lucky to have Sandra Holtmeyer. She's going to fill us in on what's happening in our current rental markets around here, around town, as well as a few other things. So Sandra, welcome. And if you want to start, feel free, go right ahead.
Okay, thanks, John. Hi, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. Hello. I'm at the beach. Not really. I was a couple weeks ago, but I still like to see myself there and get back there as often as I can. So, John, thank you for inviting me. My favorite thing to do in real estate investing is rentals. So that's my specialty. I'm a real estate investor and a realtor with Worth Clark Realty. I mainly do rental properties, but I dabble in all other things real estate. I do rehabs, I wholesale, I list people's homes, I work with buyers, not as much, but landlording's the heart of everything I do. So everything else I'm doing is to work on my rental portfolio so I can retire early. So John asked me to speak about the state of the rental market in St. Louis. So I put together some things, and I hope I don't bore you to death with data and graphs. I think some people find that interesting, and some people like the side-by-sides, and some just want to hear some conversational topics. So I think we can do a little bit of both. And John, I think we can probably do some question and answers at the end. Sure. I won't go the full hour. I know I won't. So we should have plenty of time for that. So is that okay with everybody? A little bit of data and some nuggets, and all right. And then I'd like to hear from some of you as well. So I will share my screen and show you what we've got. And why is it at the end? Hold on. We will just move up.
Sure.
That is not where I want to start. Oh, hold on. I had it at the right spot. Okay, there we go. All right, the state of the St. Louis rental market, June. Right now, I will tell you, all indicators are good. The rental market is strong, and I've got some great data to support that and some current statistics I'll share. I don't want to bore you guys to death, but I live and breathe in the rental world. So I talk to a lot of folks, and probably like many of you, you're networking over Zooms right now. But I've spoken to some of the largest landlords and a lot of the private landlords in the area, and the consensus is pretty even. So I'll share some of those results tonight. So tonight, John alluded to this, but we're going to talk about some trends. We're going to talk a little bit about the pandemic and the effect it's had on some folks around town, current rent rates, what landlords are doing to successfully manage through these times, some best practices on rent collections, and how St. Louis and Missouri are ranking against the national market, and then some hot areas to invest in. So I will start with some of the effects that the pandemic has had. I can tell you just anecdotally, I know early in the year, the first quarter, a lot of the landlords and I were seeing that we were having was kind of a slow time. I don't know if any of you experienced that, but we were having a little bit of a delay filling properties, and we weren't having to reduce rents, but it was just taking longer last year and the year before, and I guess really the prior few years. Seems like there was just an ample supply of tenants, and it really wasn't a problem. Most of my properties, I would get tenanted. Sometimes just had 1 day lag. Somebody would move out one day, clean it the next, and the person's in right away. So, but this year we were seeing a little bit of a slowdown, and then COVID hit. And if you were on last week and heard Sandy's presentation, I mean, the market's hot, and we're going to talk about that, but we're also going to talk about how that impacts you as a landlord and some of the opportunities that you can glean from that and capitalize on some of this. But really, we had a quick rebound after COVID, after things started opening up, and I'll show you some of that. So overall, we have not seen a huge impact from COVID. A little bit, and we'll talk about that, but really, for the most part, things haven't changed a whole lot. So demand is increasing now. As I said, the rental market seemed a little slow the first quarter, but it quickly accelerated. There's a strong interest for rental property overall across the whole area, across all markets that we're seeing. Vacancy rates and rent collections have largely been unchanged with COVID, which everybody was expecting it to get worse. And for the most part, I'm not saying there's not things that haven't gotten worse, and some of you have probably experienced that. I had one out of my 10 that is paying half payments for now, but really that's not much different. They were paying slow before. So, and that's what I'm hearing from a lot of the landlords. It's really the people that weren't paying before still aren't paying, but our good paying tenants have still been paying. Evictions are slow. If you've been on the weekly updates with the attorneys, things are starting to move a little slow, but even they've said people that weren't paying before COVID still aren't paying, but overall it's, there's been no devastating effects overall. I don't want to generalize. I'm sure we've had a few, but for the most part, things are about the same as they were before. Similar to home sales markets, the best rentals are going fastest. Less desirable ones are sitting longer. Same thing's happening in the home sales market. Tenants, like buyers, are being picky. I swear HGTV has made everybody an expert on flipping houses and home improvements and the way things should look, don't you think? Everybody wants the new look, and some of those things we can do really affordably. And I even advise my clients when they're listing homes, you can do some of this stuff for 50 or $100. You don't have to spend a lot. So as landlords, there's things we can do to spruce up our properties. Really, for less than $200, you can change out probably many of your light fixtures, paint a couple of rooms that will give you the biggest bang for the buck. When I'm rehabbing, one of my favorite cost-saving things I do, I'm cheap, I admit it. You won't hurt my feelings if you call me cheap. But when we're doing bathrooms, I don't buy the big mirrors that come with the vanities or go to Home Depot or Lowe's. Go to Kirkland's. They have, you can get massive mirrors, huge, mirrors for $49, sometimes for $29 if they're on sale. So, I tell homeowners that too. If you really want to update a look, paint a bathroom, put up a new mirror, a light fixture. Those little things really go a long way, and it really makes a difference in how much cash you collect. And cash flow is a whole other topic you can get me off on, so I don't want to go too far down that road. But anyway, the best properties are still renting fairly quickly overall. Now, unlike home sales, there seems to be enough supply of rentals in most markets. We know there's a huge inventory lag in homes, but there seems to be plenty of rentals in most areas. There's not really a shortage. We have more of a shortage of good tenants than properties. But at a minimum, tenants are still expecting properties to be very clean at all price points. It at least has to be clean. I know we had kind of a wet, sloppy winter, and I was showing a place that had espresso dark floors. And oh boy, I had to sweep and mop that thing almost every time people came in, even with the booties that you put out and little signs. It just tracked everything. I'm glad that floor trend didn't last long, because that dark shows dust and everything. But it's got to be clean, because it's an immediate turnoff when people come in. Let's see. we are seeing many tenants are extending their leases because of COVID. They feel safe and secure where they're at. They don't want to get out and do shopping, you know, be going around crowds, open houses. It's some people are just content where they're at, and with the current housing shortage, buyers are getting beat out a lot of times. So many have stepped back, and they're just going to wait it out a little bit longer. And, you know, it's interest rates are really low. I have clients getting 2.85%. I wish I could refinance all my rental properties for 2.85%. But people, you know, are chomping at the bit, and it's like a buyer frenzy. But if there's not enough homes, many tenants are choosing to stay at least till the fall and wait it out. I know many of mine ended up going on a month to month after their lease was up because they see what's happening in the buyer's market. They don't want to jump in that shark tank, so they're just going to wait it out. So that's an advantage for us. So take advantage of that. You know, even offer incentives for people to stay. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, who knows what will happen with the market? This whole year's been haywire and crazy. The same thing or similar market situation happened a couple of years ago. I'm sure some of you on here are agents. I can't see everybody that's on here, but 2 summers ago, I was telling my buyers, oh, this market can't last long. And, you know, we've had our ups and downs, but here we are again with a vengeance. So it's nutty. But I found some great stats I wanted to share on St. Louis. I'm very proud of our city, and we are, according to Zillow, a top 10 rental price market. When they compare our home prices with rental prices, they come up with a price to rent ratio, and we came in at number 10. So we have affordable housing and affordable rent, and it's a good ratio for folks. So you can see the other cities that we compare to. Many of them are Midwest, but it's an appealing place to invest, for people to live. You know, we really do have affordable housing here. So I just thought you might like to see that we're in a top 10 category there. Some of you may have already seen this, but some of you have not. This was the latest housing report that came out from the St. Louis Realtor Association, and I have St. Charles next. They're 2 different realtor associations, St. Louis and St. Charles. So we have 2 in the area. And I know there's a lot of arrows, all the down arrows it's comparing this year's results to last year. So compared to last year, pending home sales are down from 8.4% from 2019. We're selling fewer homes. We're having fewer closed sales. Inventory is low. Look at that. Our inventory at the bottom is down 26.9% over last year. Like, we have that many fewer homes for sale than we had just a year ago, and their inventory was low then. The median sales price is flat. So prices have, at least for this month, have plateaued a little bit. I don't know if they'll continue to go up or not, but we kind of know we're at the top, right? Months of housing supply is 2.2 months. A normal market is considered 6 months. So we are drastically low. There are so few homes on the market. And even that is down 24% from last year. So everything's just getting squeezed tighter and tighter. And average days on market is lower. It was up for a while, but things are selling quicker, and that's, you know, just the spring warm weather market that tends to happen this time of year. Homes sell faster. But look at the townhouse results. I own, as some of my rentals, about half my portfolio is condos and townhomes, and I love it. If you can cash flow with that HOA, for me, you know, it's a lot less exterior work and landscaping and roofs and things to take care of. My tenants like that there's snow removal and a pool generally, you know, in the nicer areas. So if you can make your cash flow numbers work, townhomes and condos are really easy to manage from a building standpoint. But if you look, that inventory of townhomes and condos is increasing. So there's a little bit there that you might be able to capitalize on. So I think that's one of our best opportunities right now as landlords. If you're willing to do townhomes and condos, it's something to look at. The availability is a little bit better, and that can give us a little more leverage and negotiating price and some concessions. So keep that in mind. All right, let's see. And don't forget, you know, people always need a place to live. So I always remind myself of that. So this is the St. Charles County housing report. They just tee it up a little bit differently. They don't include the townhomes and condos. It's all rolled in together. But the same trends, basically, except for the home prices are going up in St. Charles County. We're a growing market out here. I'm a St. Charles County person. I do business all over, but I live in O'Fallon, and most of my rentals are out here. But the St. Charles County market is growing, and there's a lot more home construction out here than St. Louis County. And they're building some homes. I can't believe, I was just driving around an area yesterday, you know, starting price in the 500s, and they're calling them estate homes from the 5 to 700s. So anyway, it's just, you know, a growth market out here, but inventory is down. It's just tight everywhere. But overall, the same trends in St. Louis and St. Charles counties. Okay, so a little bit more on the pandemic effects. I thought you might find this interesting. Many of you felt this, especially if you were an agent. But the orange line is 2020, week to week, how many showings we're having. And these are showings that are scheduled through the MLS with realtors. And as we know, as landlords, most of us don't advertise all of our rentals on the MLS, right? I mean, most of us are using Zillow and Craigslist. So those numbers aren't reflected here, but it still shows the trend of what was happening in the area. So orange is 2020, the dark blue line is 2019. So when you compare them, January, February, you know, we were kind of tracking along the same trend line as prior year. And then all of a sudden in March, it starts to dip and took a big ol' upside down bell curve there for about 3 weeks. And we all felt it. Everything came to a screeching halt. But we were doing virtual showings and some other things. And you know, like the Zoom meeting, people got creative really quickly, and there's ways around that, even for landlords. I think it's smart to have rental properties professionally photographed, because everybody is shopping on their phone, right? And they're scrolling through looking at those pictures. And if pictures don't grab them, or the place looks dark or junky or like an old, you know, rundown place, they're just going to keep looking. So it's worth it, you know, for about $100-$150 to have those pictures taken and then use them every time. Hopefully you don't have vacancies every year, but you can use them over and over. So anyway, got off on a tangent a little bit there, but that is what we started doing during that time. Luckily, it was only about a 3-week drop, and then things started going up quickly. So as it stands now, as realtors, our showings are up 21% over last year. So it's like everybody came out with a vengeance, and it's really a buyer's frenzy right now. And same thing happened with rentals. As soon as the cities started opening, people were out and at least making calls again and making inquiries when they were kind of just laying low for a while. The low interest rates again are getting people out there, but it's making it competitive. So as landlords, it's opportunities for us to keep those folks in the rentals, because it's hard to get a house right now. If they may be qualified now, but now they got to compete with everybody else to try to get one. So I thought that was interesting, you know, the big disparity there, and we're up 12% over last year. I mean, it's just a crazy busy market. All right, let's see. Okay, local rental market trends. This is the city of St. Louis, and I've got a couple of conflicting numbers here. So I'll show you, you know, this graph was from Neighborhood Scout, and I'll show you the next one. So I was pulling information from different places. But the average market rent in the city of St. Louis is $967. So don't know if that surprises anybody, but that's all rentals combined, apartments, homes, all number of bedrooms. That's just the flat out average. So I thought it was interesting. This graph is showing that over half of the homes in the city of St. Louis are occupied by renters. And then look at that big number of vacancies. I don't think that surprises anybody, especially if you were on the urban trends with the Realtor Association yesterday. So compare that with, so that's neighborhoodscout.com. This one was from, where's this chart from? I think I cut it off. Anyway, it's kind of the opposite. It's showing that the rental households are 44% and owner occupied are 55%. So I don't know. I don't know if they just pick different time periods or what, but roughly it's 50-50, right? So the truth lies somewhere in the middle. But the high percentage of the rental properties, I think, just screams opportunity for us as investors and landlords that you know, St. Louis is a great rental market. There's a lot of renters out there and a lot of properties. So at the very bottom, if you look at this, 172,000 or 44% of the households are renter occupied. I mean, that's a lot. So as wholesalers, I think we know that most of our deals come from burned out landlords. And, you know, there's a huge number here. And especially right now and down the road the next few months, as landlords get distressed with if renters stop paying or things don't get better right away, I think there's going to be opportunity for investors to scoop up some properties there. So keep an eye on things. All right, same graph for St. Charles here. Less rentals percentage-wise in St. Charles than St. Louis, but I don't think anybody's surprised by that. It's just more suburban this far out, and you know, even rural on the outskirts. So 18,000 households in St. Charles are renter occupied, and the average market rent's actually pretty similar, $996, a little bit higher, but I think it's mainly because we have fewer 1- and 2-bedroom homes out here, more 2s and 3s. So I think that's the major difference there. So. All right, here was another one, and I found a chart that had like 50 cities. I couldn't squeeze it on here, but this is from rentcafe.com. So if you like to look at numbers and statistics and graphs, go to rentcafe.com. They had some great information. But these are St. Louis cities in the St. Louis area, and it shows our year-over-year changes in rent. So you can see they're all positive, anywhere here from 2 to 9% increase in rents, 2 to 7, is that the highest? Okay, yeah, 7 for Chesterfield. So all of the rent rates are going up in the whole area. So it shows the averages here, and some of this is just reflected on the size of homes. You know, Creve Coeur and Chesterfield has larger homes than some of these other cities have. So I was surprised the average rent in Florissant was that low. But maybe there's more 1-bedrooms than I thought, or apartments, I don't know. But Florissant's a great rental market. All right, so just thought you might be interested to see how St. Louis and then the county and then some of our cities stack up against our neighbors. And then when it comes to the city, because I know a lot of the landlords here on the call have most of their properties, if not all, in the city. So this is some of the neighborhoods that have experienced the highest appreciation rates. And so this is, you know, important for home sellers, buyers, and landlords. I was showing this to someone and they were surprised by number 3, but what's happening up in that area? The mapping agency and some of the development that's happening. I mean, look at areas like where IKEA is. What was that 10, 15 years ago? And the Grove and things like that. So I think it's really exciting what's really happening in some of these pockets in the city. And so I thought that this might be interesting to you. Oh, and McCree, Vandeventer and McCree. I worked at SLU at the hospital years ago when I was an intern. Gosh, when was that? The early 90s. And you didn't want to leave your car over there. Especially on McCree, you didn't even walk on McCree. And now those homes, they're finally bringing them back. And it's amazing. Some of those homes, you know, sold for $10,000, $20,000, and now they're getting $200,000, $300,000 for them. I love that. Same thing happened in the Grove, yeah. If I had monopoly money to play, I would have invested in that when SLU and SSM bought all that property for that new hospital. I knew. I was working at SSM at the time, so I just knew what would happen in that area. It was just ripe for development. So didn't have any monopoly money to play with. Oh well. All right, let's see here. This was also a fascinating chart to me. This is rental vacancy rates across the whole United States. So this is averages from, like, it starts back here in 1956, I think it was, all the way to the present. I can't see some of it because our faces are over it the way my screen's lined up. And these gray vertical bars that you'll see are the depressions along the years. So I find that fascinating, and some of you that are probably more financially astute than I am on economics and national, like the stock market and stuff. I mean, I just think it's interesting how they've trended. So right now our vacancy rates are near, I wouldn't say all-time or historic lows, but look at where they're at now. I mean, they're about the lowest they've usually hit. So that's good news for us. So it'll be interesting to see how the first and second quarter play out. This data is by year, so it's not, I couldn't refine it that far down, but I thought that was pretty interesting. Am I going at an okay pace for everybody? Am I going too fast, too slow? Nobody's yelling stop. Okay. All right. Okay, so this is the same chart for Missouri. I couldn't get it just for St. Louis or the county or St. Charles, but really similar trend. I mean, if you look at it and all the major recessions we've had, we're still, when you go to the far right, we're down near, all-time lows on vacancies. So that's good news for us. Super good news. All right. So one of the things I was asked to talk about is to share some best practices with rent collections. And I don't think this is unique to COVID, but we're just experiencing some new things right now that exacerbates the problem. So I put together my 6 best strategies. Number 1, be online and automate payments. Now, I know not everyone has a checkbook or a checking account, but there's so many programs now like Venmo and PayPal and things that you can even set up automatically. There's all different websites and tenant payment processing apps you can use. So I think the days need to be over here pretty soon where hopefully no one's driving around to collect rent payments with this COVID going on, and hopefully no one's accepting cash. But I know quite a few landlords that just have like an individual bank account set up with deposit slips where their tenants can go to the bank and deposit. But I think COVID's starting to change a few things. We're wanting to be more hands-off. So try to automate what you can. Number 2, offer weekly or bi-weekly payment plans. That's what I'm doing with one of my tenants that's really struggling. And if they're getting unemployment, try to match the payment to the weeks they're getting paid, or like a day after to give it, time to clear. And people really tend to appreciate that. Give them the option, throw it out there. Some people have never thought about it, or that, what my folks have said to me is, I didn't know that was an option. I didn't know we could do that. And I don't put it in my lease, but I pull that out when I need to. And some people really appreciate that. Just work with your tenants. I was a manager for 25 years. I worked in food service, and I think you've got to be a good manager and have some management skills to be a successful landlord. If you're afraid of people and don't like confrontation and you don't want to manage and you're not a rule follower and you tend to be inconsistent, you're probably going to have problems enforcing your lease and really managing your folks. So work with them. If someone's struggling, reach out to them. Hopefully by now we've talked to our folks, but I know in the beginning I was struggling with, should I send a letter or call everybody and ask them if they need help, or should I wait till they ask? And ultimately what I did is I just said, I'm here if you need me. I know times are tough right now. I can offer you payment plans, and, just give me a call. I just kind of left it open-ended. I think if people know that you are genuinely, you show some care and concern, we don't want to be their best friend. We don't want to be their pal. And in many cases, we may not even want them to know we're the owner. I tell people I'm the property manager. If they look me up and really research it, they can figure it out. But if you treat them right and they feel like, things are fair, they don't really care. So if they're missing payments, talk to them, see what's going on. It's amazing what people will tell you. Sometimes you don't even want to know what all is going on. But if they know you care enough to ask and you're willing to work with them, most of the time they're going to do what they can. And some people, aren't going to make it no matter what. But hopefully you've done a good job up front. You've screened your tenants and selected good folks, regardless of price range or where your properties are. And I think people want to do the right thing. So hopefully if they weren't a good tenant, you screened them out long ago. But ask them what their payment plan is and what their backup plan is. You know, just set the expectation that, you know, you're there for them and you'll flex, but they need to flex. They need to have a couple of options. And I always tell my folks, just to use a little reverse psychology on it, but I'll tell them, if you can't afford it any longer, it's okay. I will let you out, so that they know I'm not going to kick them out. It's up to them ultimately. And if they stop paying the rent, that's up to them. You know, I used to say that when I, you know, managed all these food service employees, and even human resources said it, you know, they fire themselves. If they do things that are not consistent with, you know, employment, or not consistent with maintaining the lease on their property, then they need to go. So I just always put that out there, that, you know, you don't have to stay. If you need to go, I understand. And that kind of puts them on notice that I'm willing to let them go that easily. It's up to them. Deal directly with them, either on the phone or in person, now that people are starting to get out a little bit, but don't just do it all by email and text. It's so impersonal, and they don't know who you are, and it's easy to yell at someone over the phone or type in all caps, or for them to think that we're angry when we're not. So just talk to them live, one way or the other. Follow up with an email or a text, something in writing that you can keep a copy of, to let them know that you've solidified that and that they're being held accountable. And sometimes they forget, they're just so stressed out. So sometimes they'll say to me, thank you for sending that. I do want to make sure that you know, that we know what we're doing here. So ask questions, offer your support. You know, I was sending links to my tenants. I was sending them links to the CARES information, the small business information, local places that were offering rent assistance, although that ran out really quickly. But you're not necessarily being their friend, you're being a smart business person, but they appreciate that. I mean, how loyal are they going to be to you if they know you, during one of their worst times, you were there and trying to help them? May not work all the time, but your best tenants will appreciate that. Let's see what else. There still needs to be penalties for late payments, and hopefully you have that in your lease. And that was a discussion even before they moved in. I strongly believe in training your tenants even before they have the lease. I start with that very first contact, the phone call or whatever. I want to talk to my tenants and get to know them and make sure we can communicate well, and then set the expectations and deadlines. And if they don't follow up and call me back when I ask them to, or if they don't show up for their appointment, or they don't send me the application back by the deadline, I know right away they're not my tenant. I mean, things happen, and you'll know, if they got, they had a sick child or something like that, but not 12 times or 5 grandmas and things like that. But, just you're setting those expectations, even if it's just, subconsciously, that it's like a job interview. So hopefully you have the late payments and penalties in there. If not, you can always amend the lease. You can send out notice. You can say, due to COVID, here's what we're doing. We're flexing. Here we're offering, weekly payments, whatever your plan is. And in addition to that, here's the penalty. So may not hold up in court. It might, if they haven't agreed to it, but we can amend our leases, especially during times like this. So let them know that you're consistent and you're fair and you're going by what they agreed to in the lease. So when I meet with my tenants, I make sure I go through the lease with them. It had been face-to-face, but now I would do it like FaceTime or over Zoom or something like that. Through the whole thing, I don't read to them like a kindergartner, but I hit the highlights on each page and I make them initial the bottom of each page, so they can't say, well, I never know that was on page 3. You've gone through it and you've hit the highlights and shared those expectations with them, because at the time they want in your place, right? I mean, they feel like they passed, and so they're going to be very agreeable. So if it comes back and say, well, Mary, we discussed this, when you moved in, and at the beginning of COVID, I told you, this is what we were going to do. This is what I could do to help you. And, here's what would happen. And most of the time they're not surprised. They might not like it. They might be mad, but they can't say they didn't know. So and ultimately you're the manager, so you can choose to waive it. Generally what I do is I'll waive it the first time, but that's it. After that, I don't waive it because I don't want to be seen as a pushover. I don't want them to think, oh, just call her, she'll waive it for you. I tell them I'll waive it this time, but that's it. And if they call me back a second time, I'll say, no, nope, John, I told you I was able to waive it the first time. But I'm not going to waive it again. If you can't afford it anymore and you need to move out, that's okay. I'll let you out. So that's how I deal with that. And any late charges or bank fees, just pass that along. Hopefully you also have that in your lease. But then you don't even have to be the bad guy. Hey, that the bank charged me this. This is your charge. Your rent was late, so this is your charge. This is your responsibility. So you've got to draw that line in the sand. And I have 2 tenants that pay late more than they pay on time, but they always pay. And they pay the late fees because they know that they were late once. And I even had one of my tenants going through a really nasty divorce, and he was withholding her money for months on purpose, trying to starve her and get her kicked out. So we agreed. I actually floated her for 3 months, and I've never done that before, but I knew I could see in CaseNet, some of what was going on, so I knew she was being truthful about it, and she got caught up. And I have a loyal tenant, so she didn't expect me to be able to do that, but I told her I'll do it if I can. And I was able to do it for 3 months. So they appreciate that. And she's gonna, say good things about me and my properties to anyone that ever asks her, and hopefully give me a good reference on Zillow, or, give me a recommendation or whatever website you're getting your ratings on. Ask for that, you should. Let's see. But it needs to be a two-way street. It can't be give, give, give. And I think one reason landlords tend to fail, if they do fail, is they give too much. I can't tell you how many times, even as a wholesaler, I buy a property and the rent is so crazy low, and they'll say, yeah, I just never raised the rent. I know they've lived here 12 years. They've been a good tenant, but I don't have the heart to raise the rent. Really? Have your property taxes gone up? Have your utilities and sewer and all of that insurance costs increased over the last 12 years? So you're setting yourself up to fail if you don't keep up with those expenses. So if you have trouble doing that, come up with a set of policies and have someone help you enforce it, whether it's an assistant or a property manager, or blame it on your attorney or insurance company or whatever. But I've seen a lot of landlords fail and lose money. And I hate to see that happen, just because they're afraid to do something that is within their legal rights to do. And what I tell my tenants, I put it in the lease. It's called a escalation clause. So each year I reserve the right to increase their rent, and I put in there that it will be based on market rent. Now, whether I do or not, that's up to me. Sometimes I'll even send them a rentometer report mid-year, like I'll track my rents. And wow, the rents are really high in this area. So I'll send them a report. Hope things are going well. Just thought you might be interested in this information. Hope you're still happy, and especially if it's time for them to renew, I'll tell them what their new rent will be, or if it's the same, and show them the current rent rates are higher in the area. And they appreciate the information. They know they're getting a good deal, and it's cheaper for me if they don't move out. I don't have to clean the place and fix it and shampoo the carpets, because they decide, you know what, I will stay here. This is a pretty good deal. So just a little added value thing you can do. Rentometer is the website I use. You can use it free a few times, and then they start pinging you. They want to charge you, but there's a special right now. It's half price. It's like $50 a year. I use it all the time. I think it's well worth it, and it's a business expense you can write off. So, so that's part of that two-way street thing. Offer an incentive gift or a gift card. I have gotten a couple of times in the mail thank yous from people, like a $10 Starbucks card or a $5 Starbucks card. And that's a wow for people. No one's expecting that, especially if it's just kind of random. Like, hey, I know COVID's been tough on you. I want to thank you for your on-time payments, or even if they've not been on time, but they've gotten caught up, or they've done their best, or, whatever. Just a little handwritten note and a $5 or $10 gift card. I'm telling you, they will be blown away. So offer an incentive. You can tell them up front, or you can just do it as a reward after the fact. But they appreciate that. Even just a birthday card, that only costs you a stamp and a card. That will set you apart, and they I don't think it makes you look like a pushover. It looks like a good business person being professional and being respectful. So even businesses, you get Christmas cards or 4th of July cards, set your clock back cards from different businesses. Ours should really be no different. And then, just I put number 6, it should probably be number 1, but just say thank you. We're all going through tough times, and if we've done our job, and sometimes I'll even tell my tenants, some of them have figured out that I'm the owner and they know I'm a single mom, I'll tell them, I know we all need our money. Me going through my divorce is how I got started in real estate and rental properties. And I tell them I get it, and I'll help where I can, but when I can't, I'll let you know. But I appreciate them. They're helping me build my business and my retirement and support my kids. And hopefully I'm giving them a good place to live, and they're happy with what they've got. So just say thank you. I mean, I think that goes a long way, and it's unexpected. Again, just even a thank you card in the mail, a random thing. Sometimes for my folks, I'll just like when spring is happening, like around April, May, when Lowe's and Home Depot starts to put out their flowers and all that stuff. Sometimes I'll pick up just a $10 or $12 pot of petunias or whatever, and I'll drop them off on their front porch just with my card. And they may not even say anything in the card, just maybe my business card, so they'll know it was for me. And you would not believe the appreciation. So anyway, those are just some of my top ideas, and the ones that I know other landlords are having success with right now. So I wanted to share that. And that's really all I had for the formal presentation. I know that was a lot of statistics and numbers, but I do a lot of networking, as many of you do, and I know what I'm hearing from my colleagues and many of you, but it's always great to see the numbers and see that what we're feeling really is happening, and to quantify that. But where are we at on time here? So do we have time for questions, John, or?
Oh, sure, absolutely.
What do you want to do next?
We got a couple here, Sandra.
Okay.
As far as your photography, do you say you use a professional? Is there somebody you'd like to share that you use, or how do you do yours?
Sure. I used to do it myself with my iPhone, and actually my iPhone is an 8, it's nothing special, but outside these things take really good outside pictures, especially on a sunny day. But I have started using professional photographers, and I have a few. Let me pull them up here and tell you. I have used Corey Boyles. He's a local investor that started doing real estate photography. He's really good. Taylor Cohn with Canon Shots. They also do virtual tours and like video and drone. So I started using them for my listings, if you want a video tour. Bruce Lubering, he's a local agent that is also a photographer. So it helps if they're agents or they have experience, because they understand, what buyers are thinking and what we need them to show.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the 3 that I've used. Okay. And they all cost, for my average houses, it's about $150, sometimes a little less. But on my rentals, I'm going to use those pictures over and over and over. So you just can't beat them, especially inside. I'm not good at inside pictures, and they get the lighting just right. And I won't let them, and these guys don't take like wide angle, fisheye looking camera pictures where you think, oh, that dining room's huge, and you get to the house and it's this big. So yeah, they do a good job representing. So.
What about, do you use any kind of management software, Sandra, as far as, or like a spreadsheet or anything with your rental properties?
I have QuickBooks and a spreadsheet. I really only have about a dozen, so I'm able to manage it myself, but I learned after about property 3, I couldn't remember everything. Mm-hmm. So I have a spreadsheet with my rent rolls. I have a different spreadsheet with all of my properties and the maintenance and repair items, which aren't too many. One of the things I do when I first acquire a rental property is I fix everything right from the beginning. I tend to over improve a little bit, but like I had one I bought last year, and the inspector said, well, the electrical panel's starting to rust out. It's probably gonna need to be replaced at some point. Like, oh, let's do that now. I don't want to worry about that because I knew I'd forget. And how do you know when there's a problem? When there's a problem, you know, I don't want arcing and fires and things. So I've made sure that everything's in good working order up front, at least as much as it can be. So I don't have extensive repairs. I've had a couple properties that did, and I sold those, like, let's get rid of that. But yeah, I do my payments through QuickBooks. All of my folks have a checking account, so through QuickBooks, we can do a free ACH transfer, costs nothing. I have an automatic invoice, a recurring invoice for each person. So on whatever date I've told QuickBooks, it shoots them the current copy of the invoice, and they pay it, and that works really well. But as far as managing, it's really, for me, it's maintenance requests and rent is the two big things. So.
Great. Sounds like you got a really good handle on some of that, Sandra.
Well, I have to write down things like insurance and utilities, because you think you remember, but I don't. Like because I have about 3 different insurance companies I work with, since some of my properties are townhouses and condos. Those are insured differently than the single family homes. And if it's being rehabbed or whatever, I can't remember all that.
Well, after a few of them anyway, after about 5, I know it gets really difficult.
It does. It just kind of runs together. So.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah. Any other questions here? You did such a good job filling us in on everything, and I really like the way that you deal with your tenants. I mean, that's a good, some of that's a refresher, but so many people just don't realize that. And yeah, the key, I think, is communication. Is what you kind of presented there, is just staying in touch with them.
Yeah, I don't want them to be afraid to call me, and I think your tone and your manner is important. If you come from a place of, I don't want to say partners, but we're working together, and I'm here for you when you need me. And I go through, even when they move in, like, what's an emergency call and what's not, so they know they can certainly reach me during normal business hours, no problem. But I tell them, please don't call me after hours unless it's an emergency. If there's a broken pipe, call me. But I tell them, I'm also not going to bother you after hours. I'm not going to call you about something at 8 o'clock at night that's not urgent. So, I just really try to build that rapport and respect, so they know that they can trust what I say, and I'm, easy to work with. Not a pushover, but just open lines of communication.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think the other thing too is not become too friendly, because I know when I started out, I believe every story, and I wanted to be their buddies. Well, you're not their buddy. You're still a business. It's a business relationship. That was a very, very good reminder on that, Sandra.
Yeah, well, I think my management experience in the hospitals really helped me with that. So this just seemed like a natural transition. But I've worked with landlords that really have had no management experience, just because of their career or whatever, and it's harder for them. So I think they're easy things to learn, but if you've not done them naturally, then you may not think to approach things this way or that way. But it's, I don't ever want my tenants to feel like I'm the boss and I'm the hard line. It's, here's what we all agreed to, and let's just stick to it. So.
Great advice, Sandra. Yeah. Any more questions? I think you did such a good job that there's not a whole lot of questions. You really filled us in on it really well. And yeah, I really appreciate that. Okay, well.
Was there any surprises for anybody? Did any of the numbers or rent rates or anything really surprise anyone? Is it kind of what the group's been feeling or seeing?
To me, the shortage of homes available has been kind of the surprise for me in the last couple of months. And you pointed that out again. I know they're bidding up some of them. It's just, I personally didn't expect, I guess I don't know what to expect, because I'm not, it's easy to sit back and look what happened instead of looking to the future. Also.
Yeah. Well, there's still deals for investors. I'm getting more deals this year than I got last year.
Yeah.
So, but if you're looking for rental properties, work with wholesalers and look at townhomes and condos. I think there's an opportunity there. I know some people don't want to touch them with a 10-foot pole, but there's some of my easiest properties to manage. So
I agree with you. I love condos.
Yeah. And look at, well, and you may not realize this, but many of them in our area were built in the 70s or 80s. And those folks are retiring, moving to the nursing homes, and they're in a original condition, you know, like they're perfect for rehabbing or just a little bit of lipstick and they're a great rental.
Mhm.
So there's, you know, that housing stock is aging at that point.
That's great. Those are the kind to get too.
I know.
Yes.
Well, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it, John.
Thank you so much, Sandra. You did such a great job. You're just a wealth of information, and we really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Somebody just asked about getting around the sublease for condos. I guess with the association is probably what you're talking about. Yeah, where you can't re-rent them. I know there's some ways that I do it, but I won't get into that. That's another whole process. But do you have anything that you deal with, or do you only deal with ones that will let you re-rent, Sandra?
Yeah, I've walked away from some because I couldn't get it worked out, you know, and I'm a rule follower and I'm an agent, so I tend to be kind of by the book. But sometimes you can get around it by having a family member live there. Some of them just have a time limit, like 1 year.
Mhm.
So, you know, I mean, heck, if it's a good enough deal, maybe let it be vacant for a year, use it for storage or something. But you could try like a rent to own a lease option. Um,
Well,
you know, I
one
don't
of the
want to,
things that I've done is just I acted like the bank, and now I'm looking for buyers. I'm not looking for tenants necessarily.
right,
That's what I've done. I've met with several associations, and then I give them my paperwork. Just like the bank, I'm just the mortgage holder. They're responsible for everything, and that has worked for me every time so far. That's just a little different than a landlord-tenant relationship, though.
right,
And they're
right.
okay with that. But that's just how I kind of do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. That was a good question too, because that's another whole subject though, which
Yeah,
they can get.
yeah,
So okay.
definitely.
Great information, Sandra. We thank you so much for spending your
My
time.
pleasure.
We are recording this and we will have it on the website. Probably will be by noon tomorrow because I know some of you tuned in a little bit late, didn't catch the very beginning, which I think you do want to catch, watch the whole thing because you really didn't want to miss any of this because it was such a great presentation, Sandra. So we'll have that up as soon as Patrick gets it on the website, which will be probably by noon tomorrow. So it takes a little while to rendition it and everything. I'll have it up tonight. I'll have it done by midnight, or actually by 1, because I have another meeting, but I'll have it done by 1. But he won't be there, I'll guarantee you, till in the morning. So we'll have it. Thank you again. You have your contact
Welcome.
information on there. If anybody would like to get a hold of Sandra, this is the best phone number and email address for you. Is that correct?
Yes.
Excellent. Excellent. And we'll go ahead and post that also. So thank you again. I just
You're
can't.
welcome. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you everyone for coming.